Next, I watched Audition, directed by Takashi Miike. I have been wanting to watch this for so long. I've heard that it's a really disturbing and creepy and messed up piece of film, and I'm so glad that I watched it. If you haven't heard of this film before, I'll try to describe it without spoiling too much. It is about a Japanese widower who decides to remarry and hosts an audition process like a film to find the perfect wife for him. And he finds a woman who he's very interested in, and from there on things happen and it just escalates really badly. So I love this film. I absolutely adored it. One of the best things about Audition, I think, is its ability to have everything seem so real, but also have that underlying feeling of something bubbling under the surface. You have these shots that just linger, and it makes you feel like you're watching something that you're not supposed to be. Often when I watch horror films, I tend to have this disconnect with liking the characters and believing them as real people. But I never felt that when watching Audition. The main character feels like an actual person. His relationship with his son and the woman that he becomes infatuated with is 100% believable. And in my opinion, that's what makes the last 30 minutes of this film even more powerful, because of how horrible this situation turns out to be for him. I'm going to shut up now because I believe this film is probably best to go into as blind as possible, but I'll just say that this was the film that left me genuinely disturbed by the end of it. I also saw Demons, which is directed by Lamberto Bava, son of legendary horror director Mario Bava. Demons is an Italian horror film that is about a group of people trapped inside of a cinema, which turns out to be cursed, and one by one they turn into a demon. Not the most complex film, I know, but it's a lot of fun. If you're a fan of 80s pulpy horror flicks that don't take themselves too seriously, I would say this one's for you. There's some great creature effects. The acting is a little hokey, but in a film like this, that just lends to its charm. If you like your horror nuanced and layered, this isn't gonna do it for you, but if you're just looking for a 90-minute thrill ride, give it a shot. God, there's still so many of these to go. Housebound is a 2014 New Zealand horror comedy film. The film is about a thief who is put on house arrest at her mother's house, and it turns out that the mother's house is actually haunted. I was interested in Housebound as soon as I heard that premise because I thought it sounded really funny, and it has so much potential for comedic moments as well. And it mostly delivers. The best parts of Housebound are whenever we see the dynamic between the mother and daughter, because they just play off each other so well. The actress playing the mother especially just does a fantastic job and steals pretty much every scene that she's in.
Romo, and find out who he's working for. I'm the detective. You're supposed to be a writer.
Carly?
Sure, there's my book.
Now, you're going to forget all those high-flown ideas about that 5-volume book.
Thursdays and Fridays are Coronation Street nights. Now, it's only for an hour, but it starts at 7:30, and it's almost 7:30 now.
You're going to write this to the Globe. Now, listen. Mr. Editor,
Carly,
let me in when I
please.
told him how important it was. What's in...
No right to take him. I'm the one with the residence order. He lives with me.
For God's sake!
Unfortunately, as it goes on, I think it does lose its steam and it doesn't quite find the right balance between its horror and comedy. It gets a bit too silly with the things that it comes out with, and I think that makes it hard to care about anything. And I wouldn't have so much of a problem with that if the comedic moments all hit, but unfortunately, for me at least, they didn't. And I think that's a shame, because a horror comedy with the premise of someone who's on house arrest being stuck in a haunted house, like, that's gold, you know? But unfortunately, I just don't think that it fully capitalizes on that. I would still give it a light recommendation, I think. If Hunt for the Wilder People mixed with The Haunting of Hill House sounds interesting to you, I would say check it out. I think it'll keep you entertained. but I also think that it was a missed opportunity in a way. Under the Shadow is a 2016 psychological horror film, set during the war between Iran and Iraq in the 1980s. The film follows a mother and a daughter who are being haunted by mysterious evil, whilst their city is gradually becoming a war zone. If it sounds like I'm reading off something, it's because I am. I'm on Wikipedia as we speak. I can't remember much of this. Okay, that's probably a bit unfair. Under the Shadow is a well-made film, I can say that for sure. It does a lot of work building up tension by showing you very little, which is how psychological horror is supposed to be. A lot of people call out the Blair Witch Project for being a film where nothing happens, but I think it's one of the best psychological horrors of all time. It's literally a film where your mind is forced to fill in the gaps. And I don't really get scared by horror that is spoon-fed, where everything needs to be explained. I get scared by stuff that is inexplicable. Horror, to me, is fear of the unknown. You know, that's one of the reasons why The Shining is regarded as one of the best horror films ever made. Nothing goes out of its way to let the viewers know what is going on. Right, sorry, I'm going on a tangent. I'm doing everything in my power not to talk about Under the Shadow for some reason. I think that the lead actress does a good job of portraying the mother, whose state of mind is becoming increasingly unstable. There's also a good sense of a subtle and unsettling atmosphere throughout. But that's why I'm torn with Under the Shadow, because at times the scares can be really clever and well thought out, and then other times it's jump scare bullshit where the monster will run past the door and a fucking loud music cue will play. I can't really recommend this to a general audience because they'll definitely be bored. And I can completely understand that. I mean, I'm drawing a blank just trying to say anything about this film, which shows that I wasn't really too interested whilst watching it. Which is a shame, because on paper I should be interested. This is a horror film that's set during a devastating period, and mix that with the supernatural and this should work, but it just doesn't. I don't know if it's because of the pace or if it's the confined setting, but the bottom line is it just doesn't do anything for me. Under the Shadow is a film that I respect more than I actually like. If this sounds interesting to you, by all means check it out. I can't properly recommend this. Oh my god, the Bye Bye Man. Where do you even start with the Bye Bye Man? I knew what I was in for, at least with the Bye Bye Man. I knew that this was going to be bad, and I wasn't disappointed. It's actually impressive in a way how incompetent this film is. It's almost like an anti-horror film. It's trying its best not to scare you. The Bye Bye Man is about 3 college friends who get a house together and they discover that what happens again? They find a desk that has the Bye Bye Man etched into it, and the whole thing of the film is that if you say Bye Bye Man, I think, then he comes after you. Yeah, this film is absolute dog shit, and I'm not even sure what to say about it because it's already been torn you arsehole on every video that I've seen. Rightfully so as well. There's not a single aspect of this film that works. The rules that it sets up don't make sense. The acting is piss poor. And even the shots are just not right. There's scenes where the camera is literally overexposed and letting too much light in. And how the fuck this got released into cinemas blows my mind. For some reason, Doug Jones and Faye Dunaway are in this, and they have nothing to do. It's actually difficult trying to come up with a positive for this film. It's pretty hilarious at points. Obviously that's not what they were going for, but it is. I don't even know what to say at this point. Don't watch this film unless you want to get absolutely hammered and watch this with a bunch of mates like it's a fucking sideshow attraction. Then yeah, go for it. But otherwise, just please don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't say it! Don't think it!
Okay, what's next? Tetsuo the Iron Man. Oh fuck. How does one explain Tetsuo the Iron Man? It's not really a film to be explained, it's a film to be experienced, is the best way that I can put it. It is a low-budget Japanese body horror film about a businessman who is placed with a curse that transforms his flesh into iron. The film was released in 1989 and has since gained cult status in the horror genre. It takes a page from films like David Lynch's Eraserhead with how surreal it becomes. There's some really inventive visuals for the time that really stick with you. The soundtrack is very unique and industrial, which ties it into the film really well. And if you watch it, you can see how its style has influenced some media today. When I finished Tetsuo, I wasn't too sure what to think about it. I think it was a lot to process at the time. And I also don't think I was in the right mood for it either. It was beginning to test my patience a little bit. But now that I'm talking about it, I have a bit more appreciation for it, I think. I've always had an admiration for low-budget features because they are normally the ones that take the biggest risks. And Tetsuo is no exception to that. I mean, some of this is just batshit crazy. And I can promise you that you will at least once ask yourself, what the fuck am I watching? But that's kind of the point as well. You're supposed to enjoy that weirdness. You're supposed to be made uncomfortable by what you're seeing. Before I started recording this, I wasn't sure if I was going to recommend Tetsuo, but I think I am now. I've convinced myself somehow, halfway through recording this, that Tetsuo is a great film. And I actually can't wait to rewatch it now. Society is a 1989 body horror film, which is the same as Tetsuo, which is really weird. But this one's an American body horror film. I think this one had a bit more of a budget behind it as well. Basic premise. This is about a kid who finds out that his parents are part of a cult for the upper class social elites, and the majority of the film is him trying to uncover the mystery of what that specifically is. I'm trying so hard to tiptoe around this film's plot, and if you've seen it, then you know why. Society is a film that is known for its shocking ending. It's a film that spends its time building up to that ending, so it's difficult for me to talk about anything else. And for that reason, I'm going to keep this short and sweet because I don't want to spoil anything. I will recommend this, especially if you're a fan of John Carpenter films and enjoy the special effects of horror films from the 80s. If that sounds like a good time to you, then check it out. It's fairly short, but it does have a very memorable ending. That's all I'll say. I'm moving on. House of a Thousand Corpses is next, and this is Rob Zombie's first film as a director, I think. I had seen Halloween and Lords of Salem before this. My memory's a bit hazy, but I don't remember enjoying either of them that much. So I didn't go into House of a Thousand Corpses with the highest expectations. And I'm happy to say that I was actually pleasantly surprised. House of a Thousand Corpses is a film that knows exactly what it is, in my opinion. It's stylistic overkill with these stupid, unpleasant characters, but you can also tell that it was something that was made with love, and you can tell that Rob Zombie is passionate about horror, and I found it all strangely endearing. The film isn't supposed to be taken seriously. It feels more like a theme park ride than anything else, and that's completely fine. It's not afraid to poke fun at itself, and because of that I found myself laughing with the film rather than at it. This is the first installment of a trilogy that Rob Zombie's made, so I am interested in checking out the second one, which is The Devil's Rejects, I think. Some of my friends are big Rob Zombie fans, and I couldn't get into his films in the past, but it has been a while, so I think that I'm ready to check some more out. I then saw The Void, which is a 2016 horror film. It is about a small band of people trapped inside of a local hospital, and they are forced to survive against this mysterious supernatural creature. I got big The Thing vibes from this one. It feels like it's a film from a bygone era, in the sense that it's a really simple setup where a group of people are just thrown into a situation and are forced to fend for themselves. Some really cool old school creature effects going on, clearly Lovecraft inspired as well, which is interesting because I don't think there's many modern films that take the Lovecraftian approach to horror. And I love films like Reanimator and From Beyond, so it would be great to see a resurgence of those types of films, especially after watching The Void, because it just felt like a breath of fresh air after everything else I had seen. I want more tentacles and I want to get weird. Alright, I really enjoyed The Void. I thought it was a great retro throwback film, and I highly recommend it if you can see it. Moving on to Goodnight Mommy, which is a 2014 Austrian horror film. It's about two twins whose mother has returned from the hospital after having facial surgery, and after time they begin to suspect that the person that came back isn't their mother at all. It's a very slow-paced film, which I actually liked, but I know will put some people off. I think it does a really good job of building up that sense of dread whilst the two twins are spying on the mother. And although I could see it coming fairly early on, I think that the twist this film has makes it even more disturbing. This is not a fun film by any means. It's very dark, it's very unsettling. There are some scenes that are really hard to watch actually. If you like films that are more of a slow burn and psychological, I think I would recommend this. If not, and you like your horror films to be a bit more eventful, I suppose, then I would say give it a miss. Alright, we're on the home stretch now, let's bring it home. Southbound is a 2015 horror anthology film, following 5 separate stories that intersect on the same highway. I'm a big sucker for anthology films actually. I love the concept of a bunch of stories coming together to tell one cohesive narrative. And Southbound comes from the same makers of VHS, which you may have heard of. I've seen VHS 1 and VHS 2 and thoroughly enjoyed both of them. And Southbound is no different. Usually with anthology films there are some segments that I may find better than others, but in Southbound I think they were all equally as strong, and I enjoyed seeing how each story connected with the next. There's also a lot to read into and some hidden meanings that are placed throughout the film, and I really appreciate that. It adds a lot to the film. I can definitely see myself going back to rewatch this one and finding all of the Easter eggs. This gets a big recommendation from me. I think I can recommend this to pretty much anyone actually. I think it's a very accessible horror film, and by the looks of things I don't think too many people have seen it, so why not? Go ahead and watch it. The Headhunter was a film that I came across on Shudder. It is a 2018 fantasy horror film, and if you're looking at the poster thinking whether this is a horror version of Skyrim, you're kinda right, yeah. We follow a headhunter, someone who goes out hunting for creatures and brings back their heads as trophies. And he is out to get revenge on one particular monster that has wronged him in the past. Okay, so on paper, I fucking love this idea. I think this could be great. A medieval fantasy horror film. I'm all in for that, but the problem with The Headhunter is, as you can maybe imagine, its budget. It was made on a tiny budget of $30,000, which is actually pretty crazy when you watch the film and think about what they were able to pull off with that amount of money. It is a testament to low budget filmmaking. That does mean, however, that whenever a big fight scene happens, for example, we only see the aftermath of that. Only certain parts of the monster can be shown as well. But saying that, the locations were beautiful, the set design was great as well, and what we did see with any sort of confrontation of monsters was really well handled. It's just a shame that we can't see a full Hollywood budget version of this, And if one day that happens, mwah, that is the dream right there. I would recommend The Headhunter, especially to people who are wanting to make films themselves, because I think that this is a really inspiring example of how to make the most with not a lot of money. But man, I really hope that this director gets to make a full budget version of this for more people to see. I think that would be awesome. I don't even want to talk about Truth or Dare. I thought that it might be at least fun to check out, you know, poke some fun at it. Look at the shitty Snapchat filters they've got on the faces, isn't that hilarious? Yeah, this is just shit. And not in the good kind of way, like Mao, the Bye Bye Man, where I can at least laugh at what I'm seeing, even if it is unintentional. Can't even do that with this. It just made me more and more depressed as it went on. Like, oh, this is how much effort it takes to make a hit horror film at the box office. As I'm sure you can guess, this is about a group of teenagers who play Truth or Dare, but if they don't do the dare, they die. It's not even worth talking about, honestly. It's just every cliche imaginable is in this film. It's like it was made by an AI. It has no soul whatsoever. And you know what? I've put about as much effort into this mini review as I'm sure the writers did whilst making this. So yeah, don't watch it. You know what? Truth or Dare was supposed to be the last film that I was gonna see in this video, but I was left in such a bad mood that I didn't want to give it the pleasure of being the last film that I finished my week out on. So I went back on Shudder, had a little scroll, and I came across Mayhem, which is a film I've been wanting to check out for a while now. It came out in 2017 and is this over-the-top blend of action, comedy, and a little bit of horror. And yes, it counts for this video because it's on IMDb, motherfucker. The film stars Steven Yeun, who plays a office worker who is fired from their law firm, and as he's about to exit the building, a virus breaks out which causes everyone to act out the wildest impulses, thus causing mayhem. This was just what I needed. It was kinetic, it was bloody, and most of all it was fun. It felt like there was no filler and it just got straight down to the point. Bunch of people in an office trying to kill each other. Go. This came out just after a film called The Belko Experiment, which I know shares some similarities with Mayhem. And I think that's one of the reasons why this film has been swept under the rug for some. And that's a shame because I think this is a really good time. Steven Yeun is great, who most of you will probably know from The Walking Dead. He's quickly becoming one of my favourite actors, especially after I saw him in Burning, which, wow, he's so good. Samara Weaving is also in this, and she's been on an absolute tear recently. She has some of the funnier lines in the film, and she has incredible chemistry with Steven Yeun. There's so much visual flair and energy throughout. You feel like you're playing a video game almost, since the protagonist's goal is to reach the top of the tower, and every floor even has its own sort of mini bosses in a way. It's just an absolute blast, and I would recommend it unless you don't like having fun. Oh my god, I'm done. That was it. A full week of watching nothing but horror films. I saw some good ones, I saw some bad ones, but the most important thing and the lesson that we should all take away from this video is that I have way too much spare time. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to see more content like this, please leave a like and consider subscribing. I post all my video updates on my Twitter, which is linked in the description, and I post all of the films that I've been watching on my Letterboxd, which is also in the description. I'm gonna have a really long nap. Thanks for watching again.